Hello everyone, this is Ron from High Tech Legion, and this is part of our review of the GELID Icy Vision VGA Cooler, and this is a part where I show you how to install it on your video card. Of course, I cannot guarantee that this is exactly the same steps you're going to take, since there are multiple video cards available in the market, and especially we are dealing with NVIDIA and AMD both. But this should serve as a rough guideline of what to expect, and is not meant as a replacement for the manual. And the manual is actually quite detailed. The first step, of course, is you have to identify which components are which first. Now they provide, GELID provides plenty of heat sinks. You're not going to use all of these, so do not be concerned about right now. You have to put that aside and focus on the screws available. You have to separate them since they arrive in a single bag. So I want you to separate them first. Now, when it comes to some of the parts, you get an extra piece. For example, these two-sided standoffs, you get an extra one. You only need 4, at least according to the manual. You get an extra one for a 5th. And for the single-sided standoffs, you see here, you only need 6, but they provide one more extra just in case you drop one, and you can still reuse it. Also, you get 4 of these plastic screws, which are essentially push pins that are spring-loaded. You get these are the M2 kind of bolts. See there? And 2, 4, 6. You get 6 of them total, no extras. You get this M2. It looks like a screw that is a push-through screw. And that's an M2 screw. There's 2 pieces of that. And for the, I believe this is the M3, tiny M3 screw, is about 4 pieces of that, no extras. And for these nuts, you get differentiate between this type of nut right here. On the top, you have the cross-threaded nut, while here at the bottom, you just get the single slit nut, which are larger. And you get 6 of these total. And also, in case I missed this one, this was the last set of screw, which you get 6 of these in total as well. Now they provide plenty of washers, so you're not going to use all of these. And of course, there are 15 in total, so you can reuse it later on. And also, before you take out your video card, you have to identify first which hole you're going to use. I'm going to use the GTX670. That is using a GTX680 PCB. The Icy Vision from GELID is compatible with GTX680, but unfortunately it is not compatible with the reference GTX670. So thankfully I have a GTX670 that has a GTX680 PCB, so I can install it there. And your manual lists which mounting hole to use. I believe I am going to use the 58.42mm mounting, which is the outermost one, for my GTX670 or GTX680. And put that aside, and now I'm going to take out my video card and going to remove the heatsink on that and replace it with the Icy Vision from GELID. Depending on your video card type, it might be easier, it might be hard to remove the cooling solution. Now this is an aftermarket cooler, see here, so it's a lot easier compared to the reference NVIDIA design. I just need to basically liberate the 4 screws here, the core, and make sure before you do this, of course, to discharge yourself so you don't damage PCB since you have exposed components, and also work in a clutter-free environment here so you don't lose the screws. So you're going to be removing a lot of tiny parts along the way. And that's all there is basically for this type of video card. Just need to remove the 4 screws in the back, unplug let me just unplug the fan here. Now if you're not sure which component to put in, which component needs additional heat sinks that you want to install for these aluminum heat sinks right here, make sure to use the heatsink you removed as a guide. For example, here you can see that there are thermal pads on the memory and also on the GPU core right there. Of course, that's hard to miss. Your video card might also be the type of model that has a guard around it. You would have to remove that in order to fit in the frame here for your Icy Vision VGA Cooler. But in this case, as you can see, our GPU is exposed, GPU core, and also there is already a heatsink here for the memory. Let me just let me check here if it is compatible. Depending on what you have, it may already be compatible height-wise, and you might not need to add heatsink to that VRM. So as you can see there, it is completely compatible. So I don't even need to add additional heatsinks for that. But as you can see, since the memory cooling for this video card is embedded with the heatsink body itself, I would need to replace the heatsinks rather of the memory chips. Now you have to make sure to clean it first, since obviously you can see there is thermal interface material in there, and there's also the pads that were in contact with the memory chips had to be cleaned, because your adhesive will not stick properly if you don't clean that up. Also, I'm going to remove the VRM here so I can show you. Maybe your video card has a larger VRM cooling. I'm going to show you anyway what it looks like underneath and how to select which one goes to that area there. But once again, let me reiterate that if you already have a heatsink in that area and it is within the clearance of the GELID Icy Vision VGA Cooler, then you can just reuse that. You don't need to replace it. It's a lot more practical that way. Right, so I'm going to clean this up now. I'm going to remove my heatsink. As you can see here, this cooler is from Gigabyte, and it comes with 3 fans. These are 80 mil. And but the difference is that the heat pipes, there's about 3 heat pipes there compared to 5 in Icy Vision. So it will be interesting to see what the results are. As you can see, the aluminum fins are smaller, although they are denser, they're thicker, and you have heat pipes. So let's see what the difference is between this one later on as we test it. Now I'm going to clean it up and I'm going to put in our heatsinks. Alright, so I have cleaned the memory now and the GPU area. Now, if you notice, there are still some thermal interface material around it. That's not a problem in this case, since let me just show you what it looks like closer. At the surface, you can see how reflective the surface is, how clean that surface is. The copper heat pipe will make contact with the surface anyway, not necessarily the air at the bottom, so it's not a problem if that area still has some residue on it, as long as you can see there, the surface itself of the GPU is very clean and has no problem making contact with the copper surface. So once that is done, put that aside. The instruction manual says to lay out the memory, but what I would suggest first to do is assemble the mounting plate. So you take the mounting plate and the two-way standoff, which is the C standoff, with the D lock here, which has the kind of the crossing lock. You get 6 of these in total. You only need 4, and sort of bolt through it on one side. See there? And use a thumb screw to lock the other. Although I think I did this the wrong way. I might have done it. It's supposed to be goes through the other way. Well, I'll see later on once I'm done with it. Since it's supposed to just basically sit on top like that, and then place your heatsink on top. Now, why I did this is that I want to first see if there are clearance issues with the type of heatsink I will use for the memory modules. I'm going to move the camera a little bit to the side so I can show you what I mean in terms of height clearance and the memory modules. So I'm going to do that right now. Alright, this is what I was saying earlier. That's why you should check the clearance first. Here is the heatsink, and as you can see with the heatsink itself plugged in there, the RAM heatsink we installed has a clearance issue. It's only the middle one. The one on the other side doesn't have a problem. It's only the middle one. So I'm going to replace it with this even thinner one right here and see if that fares better. And we'll go back to this part. Alright, so here we have replaced that larger RAM heatsink with a smaller one that actually clears it now. No problems at all. Just be mindful of that when you're installing it on your video card. If you have a video card that has memory modules here in the rear where the heat pipes will be touching it. To attach the memory or VRM heatsinks, of course you need the adhesive. These are 3M two-sided adhesives. And it's a thermal adhesive, meaning they'll get even better once you heat it up. And just be careful because you don't want to touch that surface. Make sure, of course, you clean the memory surface and your aluminum heatsink surface as well. Just place. Oh, good thing it didn't touch. And just place it. And I kind of want just press it on the table, apply it, pressure, and then have to peel it out. There you go. It is a tiny thin film of adhesive in there. Just put it in. Make sure not to touch anything. For example, here you don't want to touch any other component. It moves too far up. It might be touching this one, the capacitors. There we go. And just press on it lightly. You don't want to do it too hard. It will eventually harden. And that's pretty much it. It's clear, as you can see there. Now I am here on the VRM area. You could do the same thing. You could select. Now the best part about these is that they're already pre-cut. As you can see, the thin ones for the VRM. And since we don't need this one, we can't use it since it is a lot longer. This is for most of the AMD systems, and this one is for the NVIO optional ones. And we still have plenty of optional memory here. This one is a little too big for our memory chip, hence we used the lower profile one you see there, so it has no clearance issue. And see here, we will use, of course we can also, like I mentioned earlier, since the heatsink already that comes with a video card already is clearance free, I can just put that back and reuse it, or you can decide for your own. It really just depends on your video card. And what I'm going to do now is, of course, show you the next step. I'm going to install the heatsink itself and then finalize this installation. Right now we have prepared our RAM heatsinks and our PCB. Next step is to put in the bracket we have previously assembled into the heatsink assembly. Notice that there are these notches right here that go into the copper base. Just place that in position. Make sure your standoffs are already installed. And then you take these are the M3 screws. Let me just check the manual. These are, of course, this is the number A screw. And we just attach it into the front plate itself. Just take that. Take our precision screwdriver. Notice that there is a groove so that it doesn't stick out and doesn't interfere with the height clearance. It will be lower. If you have touched the contact surface, you might want to clean that up before you apply thermal compound and then pop it into the PCB. There we go. Make sure it's completely secured, doesn't move anymore. Last thing you want is the heatsink coming out. There you go. And let's give a quick wipe. Might need to use a for cleaning, I use 99% isopropyl alcohol, and I use a coffee filter, since they don't leave any residue, they don't leave any fiber in there. There you go. It's quite clean now. Plus 99% isopropyl. For that, you get like, for $1 you can get about 40 coffee filters, and $1 for the isopropyl alcohol. That's $2 compared to getting like a cleaner or compound. That's good enough, and let's make sure our cable is free there so we can attach it later on. And now we're ready to place it on top of our PCB. First, of course, you have to apply the thermal compound. Depending on your type of surface, if you have the integrated heatsink that covers the entire area, you can use the applicator. Some thermal compound, such as the GELID Extreme, have an applicator. You can cover the entire area. You can be generous with that, but this is just the GPU die itself right there in the middle, so we don't need too much, just a modest amount in this case. It's completely up to you, of course. Some people prefer a lot, some people prefer just a little amount, depending on the surface area that they have. Usually what video card manufacturers do is they put a lot more, as you can see there, compared to a standard, rather compared to CPUs, since this is a GPU. And also prepare the next step. We will be locking the next, we'll be locking the heatsink itself into the PCB. But before that, if you decide to either use this plug or use the adapter, decide now. Just you have to attach it before you put in the heatsink on top, especially if you have a shorter PCB, which will be obscured later on. So I'm going to plug it in now, and then I'm going to apply a thermal compound and then attach it into our heatsink. Before we put in the PCB with the heatsink, next step is to put in the washers, the surface, so it doesn't damage the PCB. It is adhesive, but it is not as adhesive as the one on the memory. So what I did was I flipped it over. I have the adhesive side on top, so when I pop it down like so, it will have a better stick, because it keeps on falling down if I just attach it and then invert it like so. I'm installing it inverted like this because it's much easier to see once it goes through the surface. See here. We just position it and make sure the four corners are going to be filled. Let's see here. Start with the first corner right here, and make sure you look at it properly. You don't want to be scratching that other surface. And now with that, we take our last bolt here. These are not the crisscross ones, but these are the sort of single-sided one. Single slit one, and if you look closely, there is already a protective washer in here, since this is the one that was already, that it came with the video card already. I can just use that similarly to the heatsink for the VRM, but if you don't have that, you can, or just in case you removed it, you can just use one of the extra washers included. But in this case, I don't need that since there already is one. Again, you have to be careful. Never forget to put in those things so the installation is properly grounded. Make sure to not install it completely, at least until you are, do it around 25% per corner, do it in a crisscross fashion. That is the most efficient way of having an evenly distributed weight. And we take our screwdriver to make it tighter. Alright, now here we have our GELID Icy Vision VGA Cooler installed. As you can see, I didn't need to remove the metal spine from my video card, which prevents it from buckling. And also, depending on how you want it, you can just a little bit of slack with the cable here. So you can maybe tuck it in on top of that heatsink, or maybe have it out. Completely up to you, as long as it's out of the way of the fan. Perfectly fine. And as you can see there, that some GTX680s don't have the memory, the plug-in configuration like this for the power. Some are actually stacked, and even this one is compatible, as you can see, because it doesn't. It only stops up to there. So even if you have a GTX680 that has a higher one, it will probably work as well. Of course, make sure to consult GELID's website for that. And in terms of clearance, perfectly fine. Now, I have plenty of leftovers here. I didn't get to use all these pins. I thought these ones will be all used, so I only used 4 actually in total. So there's 2 more extras, plenty of extras, so that's good. That means even if I lose one, I can just, well, I have to keep track of these just in case I need to reuse it in a later upgrade. Now, what we should do is, of course, test it out. Plug it into our test platform and compare the performance compared to the already very good aftermarket cooling, and see if the GELID Icy Vision VGA Cooler performs much better compared to the aftermarket cooling provided by this GTX 670 video card. Thanks for watching, and see you next time. You can click on the link below for the overview video with the benchmark results, and the link to the full review, full written review is down below as well. Leave questions or comments, and once again, this is Ron signing out.